injury and when we'll find out what it is, things of that nature. We got a couple of messages. This one's interesting. It said, can y'all do one more PSA? Please tell the fine folks out there. Apparently, people are doing the blame thing, according to this message. It said, please tell the folks out there that the current coaches from state did not cause or would not cause, if this is what happens, Tommy John surgery. They take extremely good care of their guys because if they get a reputation for not taking care of them, it will not look good on the recruiting trail. That is absolutely true. If you get the arm ruiner reputation, you never get a high-level arm again. It just doesn't happen. They know that getting the reputation will kill their program. Tearing the UCL is a combination of increased velocity, violent arm action, and the use over a long period of time. It confuses people more than the First Amendment. That gave me a chuckle. And then the next question, how did Landon Sims hurt his arm?
Well, I mean,
there's a lot to unpack there.
Throwing a pitch would be the easiest answer. I don't know. Yeah, we don't know for sure what he did, but it looked like he tore his UCL. I don't think anybody can look at Mississippi State's pitching staff and say they don't take care of pitchers. Look at how, they coddled JT Ginn like a Fabergé egg. They would not let him overdo it, even though I'm sure he wanted to at times when they were chasing after SEC and in the College World Series. But they wouldn't let him do it, and they kept him safe. And even though he got drafted in the second round versus the first round, he ended up making more money long term. And the same here, Foxhall, look at the way they managed their pitching staff a season ago. How many games could they have won by pitching, maybe 2 or 3 more games, 4 or 5 more games, by letting Landon Sims go out there a couple of times a weekend? But they would never do it. They wanted to make sure everybody was fresh for the postseason. State's pitching staff has done an excellent job through the years. Or I should say through the years. It's only been a few years. But in their time in Starkville of making sure the pitchers have been taken care of. Now, a few years back, you couldn't say that. Obviously you can't blame him directly. Or maybe you can, I don't know. But when Wes Johnson was there, they had that run of, 5, 6, 7 guys with Tommy John. I remember doing it. So back in my podcasting days, I did an interview. I reached out to the nation's top Tommy John specialist. I wanted to have him on the podcast to get some insight. I sent him an email and I said that Mississippi State, I think it was 8, had 8 injuries in the past calendar year of Tommy John. And his email back was like, I want to make sure I read that right. Did you say 8? And I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, Brian, that is not normal. I will be happy to come on your podcast and discuss it with you. And, yes, they had a really bad string there for a while. But nowadays, Lamonis and staff, they do a good job of protecting their pitchers.
Sometimes it's unavoidable. And this is, I'm not talking about Landon Sims anymore, just generally speaking. I've read and heard a lot of people that would know this better than me say, oftentimes guys are in their life throwing too much. You've got high schoolers getting Tommy John now because for some reason we've decided that it's very important for little Timmy to play baseball somewhere other than their hometown every weekend all year. And they're throwing 100 pitches twice a weekend, every weekend, all year long. And when they turn 15, they tear something in their elbow because when they were 9, somebody taught them how to throw a curveball and all that stuff. There's a hyper focus on baseball especially that is causing early arm injuries. And that is not, I'm not talking about Landon Sims of that. That's just a general thing that you're seeing all over. But this kind of thing just happens. It just happens sometimes. I don't
know if you saw this last night, but Tanner Witt, who's the best pitcher in the country for Texas, the number 1 team in the nation, he's out for the season, Tommy John. So basically in the last 5 days, we've lost probably your 2 first-team All-American starting pitchers.
And he's a guy that, he throws hard and people take violent the wrong way. I'm using this as a compliment. He throws violently. He works when he pitches, and sometimes things in your body just give out. The great thing for Landon Sims and all of these guys now that have to get this, it doesn't ruin your career. It doesn't slow your career down other than the months that you're missing in rehab. But professional organizations when they see you've gotten Tommy John, they make sure that you can throw again, but it's not an issue anymore. It's gotten so
It used to be a
good.
career killer. Now it's just like I sprained my ankle.
Yeah.
The technology and the rehab treatments are so advanced now that it's just not a huge deal to tear your UCL. You tear it, they repair it, and a year and a half goes by, and you're as good as you ever were. C. Small, Ethan. They just came back no problem. So it's just not what it used to be. Used to be tearing your ACL meant your career is pretty much done in any sport. Now it's 8 months of rehab, or if you're Tim Elko, just wrap it up and get out there and hit grand slams. Yeah. So, this Tommy John is not the curse that it used to be, for sure.
Yeah. Long story short, things like this at times are just unavoidable. Sometimes you can overthrow a guy. You've seen examples in the past in college baseball of coaches, a lot of which aren't in the game anymore, who would overthrow their pitchers. Guys would throw 170 pitches in games in consecutive weekends, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You definitely can throw a guy into something like this. You also can do everything right, and something like this still happen to a guy.
The thing that I always come back to, and if you follow college softball, you know this as well. The throwing motion is not a natural motion. That's why softball pitchers can throw 200 pitches and then go out there a day later and throw another 100. It's because the underhand motion is as I demonstrated here on SuperTalk TV, is a natural motion of your arm. Throwing overhand, the arm is not meant to do that. So it's just throwing a pitch puts a little stress on your arm that's not supposed to. Doesn't matter how hard you throw it. Doesn't matter what you're doing with your arm. Just making the motion of throwing a pitch is stressful on your arm. And eventually it will catch up with you.
Especially now that, you've got guys throwing harder and harder and harder, and, the velocity is insane. Yeah. We talk about this a lot, but I'm telling you guys, Tennessee will be in Oxford in, I guess, 2.5 weeks. So they have Oral Roberts, and then they go to Auburn, and then Tennessee's in Oxford. Mm-hmm. Wait till you see how the velocity of that entire staff. It's not just the guy that throws 103 when it's 40 degrees out. The whole staff throws like that.
They've got some gas on that staff. Look at State last year. I think State last year had 13 guys, 95 or better. Like I said yesterday, or maybe the day before, the hardest thrower of them all was the guy who couldn't control it, was Sarantola. But he could get 98, 99. Tepper right now is still 96, 97. Stinnett's in the 90s. Sims was in the 90s before the injury. Preston Johnson can get up in the 90s. Kate Smith can get in the 90s. So can Casey Hunt. I'm talking about, and when I say in the 90s, I'm not talking about 91, 92. I'm talking 94, 95, 96. So yeah, this is what baseball is. It's fastballs and home runs. Especially at the pro level.
Somebody says UCL in baseball equals ACL in football. I think you're onto something there, although it appears that the UCL thing in baseball is even safer now. That's just anecdotal, but it feels like guys are coming back throwing harder sometimes from that surgery, as opposed to where sometimes an ACL can set like a wide receiver back a little bit. But point's a good one. ACL used to be a debilitating thing too. Was it Cam Akers, right? Mississippi's own Cam Akers that tore his Achilles and then played a few months later and won a Super Bowl?
This season, wasn't it? Yeah.
He tore his Achilles like in fall camp and then played in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So you just don't know how and some people are just freaks of nature. I'm going to put Cam Akers in that group. That guy's just a freak of nature, one of the greatest athletes this state has ever produced. So the fact that he healed up quickly, not entirely surprising to me.